Now let's talk about synthetic division. Synthetic division doesn't always work like long division, but when it does work, it's going to be the quickest, most efficient way to do a division problem. So it only works when you're dividing by a binomial. So remember that means two terms. And specifically, the lead coefficient needs to be a 1 and the degree needs to be a 1. So it's going to be something in the form of x minus k. Notice that my lead coefficient is the implied 1 and the degree is also an implied 1 exponent. Also notice that it's a negative k. That's going to be important as we build our synthetic division system. This is what you want to do. You want to draw yourself kind of a half box. We're going to draw a left side and a bottom side. You want this to be 2 rows high because we're going to write 2 rows of numbers. And then give yourself enough length to write 5 numbers across here. So we're going to write all of our coefficients only. We're going to get rid of temporarily all of our variables, our x's, and only write the numbers that are in front. First thing we need to do, just like we did before with long division, is confirm that we have every single term accounted for, from our leading term that has our biggest exponent on it, a 4, and then all the way down to a constant. So 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, we're good here. And on our divisor, we also have a 1 and then a 0 exponent, so that is good as well. The next thing we want to do is identify this k value. And notice with the negative in front of it, if I have a +1, my k value will be a -1. Another thing to do is go ahead and make yourself a note here that says that the k value is the opposite of what you see. That way that will remind you. So if you don't have another color pen to write with, I suggest circling this or maybe putting a cloud around it to remind you that the k value is opposite. That's one of the places where it's really easy to slip up and make an error. The next thing we're going to do is put those coefficients into our kind of half box. So I'm going to take the 3 off of the x to the 4th, 1 off of x to the 3rd, -2 from the x squared, +2 from x, and -5 are constant. Now that I have all of those, I'm going to do my process. This process may seem a little awkward at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's going to become very quick and efficient. So give it some time, give it a chance. So our process is bring down and then multiply, add, and we can keep going, multiplying and adding until we run out of numbers. So the first thing that we're going to do is bring down, and bring down means to bring down the very first coefficient that we wrote. So we're just going to bring that 3 straight down. We are building our quotient down under the line this time. Our second step is to multiply. We're going to take the 3 that we just wrote and multiply it by our -1 k value. And that's going to give me a -3. We write it in the next available space, which happens to be up here, -3. So we are going kind of diagonal up like that. If you want to draw that arrow in to make sure that you know where that multiplication product goes. And then finally we add. So I'm going to add 1 and a -3. And when I add 1 plus -3, I'm going to get a -2. And now we multiply and add again. So now we will take the -2 and multiply by -1, our k value. That gives us a +2. Adding will give me 0. 0, the number I just wrote, times -1, well, that's just going to be 0. Adding 2 plus 0, I get 2. And then finally 2 times -1 will be a -2. And then our last adding is -5 and -2 to give me -7. All right, so this doesn't look like much yet, but it's about to be our quotient and our remainder. I like to go ahead and section this first term, or the one that's the furthest right, section that off because that is our remainder. And so that just helps me remember that that needs to be separate and written over the divisor. Next, we're going to continue working our way to the right and add our other constants and coefficients. So the very first thing to the left of the remainder is going to be our constant term. In this case, 2 will be our constant. 0 is our x term, so we're not going to have any x's. We have x squared, x to the third, and we would keep going as long as we had more coefficients to fill in. So to kind of write the way that we're going to do this, we're going to start with remainder, and then constant, and then x, x squared, x to the third, etc. And this is being written, we're going to write from right to left. So kind of opposite of how we normally do things, but this is the easiest way to do it. So right from right to left. Let's put our variables back together with our coefficients now. We have 3, x to the third. That's going to be the first piece of my quotient. So 3x to the third. Next will be negative 2x squared. So minus 2x squared. I'm going to skip x because I have 0 of them, and 0 times x would simplify to 0, which we won't write. And so then I have plus 2, my constant. Don't forget that we still need to add the negative 7 over x plus 1, our divisor. And so this is our final answer with our quotient and remainder over divisor.